the way you all do. I wish we could get that same kind of a match down in Washington, D.C. Bill and I were walking in together and talked a little bit about the inability of different members of Congress to get along. And I'm always asked, well, you guys just have to learn how to compromise. And I said, well, you know, my whole life actually has been built on negotiation and compromise because I'm an automobile dealer. But when I got to Washington, what I did, I don't think most people understand, is I think any of us could sit down and negotiate or compromise as long as we agree on what the problem is. So if you don't have an agreement on what the problem is, then it's pretty hard to compromise on things that just don't mesh. I think we have a huge problem with the way we spend money. There's some people on the other side that said that's not a problem. I said, you don't think it's a problem? Say no, because we can raise rates to whatever we need, and if we can't raise enough, we can print, and if we can't print enough, we can keep on borrowing. I said, well, but that's not a sustainable model. And it doesn't bode well for the future. But you do have a group of people that really does believe that the government knows best on everything. They have a better idea of how to run it. I mean, and doggone it, we got a lot of these poor people, constituents out there that just don't get it. So we have to help them to understand that it has to be done at a government level in order for it to be successful. That's not the way I've ever figured in my life that it'll work. And when you're $16 trillion in the red, I don't think those are the people you're going to call in for consultants to see how to figure out how to get your business up and running. So I think that when we look at that, there's a lot of things that could be worked on. Right now, as you know, if you're following the news, there's so much going on when it comes down to the IRS, it comes down to the AP, it comes down to Benghazi. There's a number of different issues that are out there right now that have to be settled, and we have to figure out what happened and why it happened, and make sure it never happens again. Now that takes us off track of some of the other things we have to do. And I'm on Ways and Means right now, and our major goal this year was to do tax reform, pro-growth tax reform. And I tell people all the time that it's hard to look at a 75,000-page document or set of rules, that's what the tax code is right now, and begin to think that there's any way any one person could figure it out. Now, Americans right now spend, this is hard to comprehend, but think about this. Tax preparation, not the actual cost of it, but tax preparation. Right now, Americans, both individuals and corporations, are spending $168 billion a year preparing their taxes. And they spend 6.7 billion hours to complete that task. That's not the cost of the taxes, that's the cost of getting ready to pay the taxes. And I would think, boy, that's a lot of money that could probably be used someplace else, maybe more effectively and more efficiently. And I know in our business, no different than the way you run the co-op, Russ, we talked about this, you've got to be able to look at something that's sustainable. And if you're on the wrong track, you don't stay on that, you adjust. And the key to success is the early detection of a problem and say, okay, thank God we found out about it early enough, we can change and we can fix it. You don't want to let it go too far off the tracks so you can never get back on. So we have some huge problems that have to be taken care of. But the upside of it is, what better place in the world to be? In a country that's been so blessed for so long. I mean, these are things that we earned. These were given to us by God. We have great, great assets. When we look at our fossil fuels, my goodness, we have an abundance of very accessible and very affordable products. And in addition to that, we have tillable soil and potable water. And I said, do you think that's an advantage? So you can, all your energy is self-contained, you can feed yourself, you don't have to worry about your water. We've got things that nobody else has. So while we have problems, we also have assets. I think we can get there. And more particularly to what you're doing right now. I mean, listen, you do things that are incredible. And I would tell you this, that the key to everything that you do is right here in this room. It's you. You're the difference. Your abilities to look at a goal and set a strategy in place that makes sure that your members get the best return on their investment. They just do. Even with the variation in the numbers. You know, serving the rural population is a lot different than serving an urban population. So you have fewer folks that need the same services, but you're able to do it in a case that's so close to what they do on the ones that are the old ones. So I mean, my gosh, what an opportunity! Now, nuclear is another. We don't talk too much about nuclear, but we know we have nuclear that's available to us. And I look at all of these things that are available to us right now. You buy energy from different sources. Key is, how do I get it to where I need it? Transmission's a huge problem. We just did a piece in Congress on the cybersecurity because it's very important Some people don't realize, I don't think, how vulnerable our grid is and how critical that could be. Mike Rogers, who handles the Intel committee, I've sat in 4 briefings that he put out because he was having a tough time convincing members that we need to address this. And he said there's 2 companies out there today, actually. There's companies that are being hacked into and understand that they're being hacked into, and there's companies that are being hacked into and have absolutely no idea that it's happening. And it happens at all levels. It's not just in one aspect of our society, it's across the board. So we know we're vulnerable there, and the cybersecurity piece was very important to us. But more importantly now, the key is allowing you to be able to have a whole variety of sources to buy your power from, and to get it to you in a way that's efficient and effective and affordable. Because that's who you are, that's who you represent. And I just think it's an incredible effort. And again, it really does come down to people. There's a lot of policies out there, and I've looked at policy after policy after policy, and they're all, some of them have good features, some have bad features. But I do, the ones that really are good because people believe in them and people carry them out to the nth degree. And what you do, I mean, you just give up your personal time to be part of this. And I think the other thing that I notice now, and I'm not being critical, but we have such a gap between what people think they know and what they actually know. And sometimes it's hard getting through. They always say that the hardest part of any communication is the last 2 inches, and that's from the ear to the brain. And I don't say that to be dismissive or disrespectful, but when people understand the problem, then when you talk about the solution and how it's going to work, then they have that aha moment. Oh, okay, I get it. Well, I can be part of that. So I think we have great opportunities right now, and I don't want to waste a lot of your time. And I've told Russ, listen, that's a long trip to Washington, D.C., and gosh, is it expensive. When you're there, the cost of a room and a cup of coffee and a meal, I said, listen, I know you all come down to see us, that's fine, but if I don't see you down here, I'll just come up home. I come up home. It's a great ride. I come up 38, then I come across, make the right-hand turn at Hamilton, and come back through the fields. It's just, this is the most beautiful time of the year. I mean, it's always pretty, but everything's so green right now. It's lush, and we have these fresh blooms are out there. The flowers are really gorgeous. So it's kind of a good time to get your thoughts together and look and say, gosh, aren't we blessed? I mean, it's not like this everywhere in the world. We are so fortunate. So again, thank you for allowing me to be here. And as Russ said, listen, I said about people. The staff that serves this district is your staff. You know that. It's not my staff. And people say, well, your staff. No, your staff. These folks all work for you. Now, we don't have a large staff. We have 705,687 people that we serve. We've got 15 people to do that. That's not 15 in Washington, D.C. That's 15 between Northwest Pennsylvania and Washington, D.C. So we're a little bit limited. We've been trying to dial back our cost of operation, because it's a heavy burden on the taxpayers. So we're trying to lessen that, so we're trying to do more with less. The social media is the best way for us to do that, and if you need to get a hold of us, I mean, really, I appreciate the letters, but if you could email us, that's much better. Phoning in is good, but sometimes we just can't handle the volume. Email is the best way. But we have staff on the ground. Marcy Mostello is with me. She's in the back of the room. Stand up, Marcy. There's Marcy. She's here. Brad Moore is up in the area. We have Jen up in here. We have Christy up in the area. We have Stephanie in Butler. We have Jill and Sharon, and we have John and Sharon, and and Sammy. Yeah, Sammy is. He covers the whole district. He runs back and forth all over the place. So we have enough people right here on the ground in Western Pennsylvania. Then down in Washington, we have another 7 folks that answer the phones, do letters, do background, and check into the legislation that's happening at that level. So they're there for you. And the key to it, again, is staff. They do all the work. Sometimes I get credit for things that I really didn't get that involved in. They did all the heavy lifting. They did all the heavy work, and I get credit for it. And the same token, sometimes I get blamed for stuff that I didn't do too. So that works. It works. It's kind of a 50-50 deal. But we're there to serve. And so I would really appreciate it if you have something that's bothering you. Now listen, it may not have anything to do with the co-op. It may have something to do with the country. Something altogether different. Right now we're looking at the IRS and some of what I think is an absolute outrage and an overreach by the federal government, by a branch of the federal government that to me is just too intrusive. And when you see some of the things, I won't even begin to go into it, but when they can ask you how much money do you have in your wallet, whose yard sign did you put out in the last election, and when you pray, what's the content of your prayer? What? What does that have to do with anything? Now, these people have become too intrusive. I got to tell you, sitting across from them, They are the most dismissive, arrogant people I've ever been around. I got to tell you, I've been on the other side of the table with these guys. They don't give you much leeway. You don't have all the receipts, you don't have every I dotted, every T crossed, you're held responsible. I think we've just reached the point where the people, I mean this, please don't take this the wrong way. You need to demand better government. Don't ask for better government, demand better government. I mean, this is truly the way this works, and I think we've become a people that, you know, we're too easy on this. I say, well, they can't get it done. Baloney. Look, we're in an emergency situation right now, and I used to say it's 5 minutes to midnight. I think it's 5 minutes past midnight in some of this stuff. We don't get this fixed right now, my goodness. Not just for our kids and our grandkids, but ourselves. There's huge, huge problems right now, and I said earlier, not here, not now, not with everything the Lord's given us. Why would we be wallowing in the mire right now? We should be dominating the economy, the whole global economy. Who can compete with us? Seriously. Seriously, who can compete with us? Our model allows us to rise to whatever level we want. Now you have to have a little grace of God there, because I know there's bumps in the road. But you can't do that everywhere in the world. You can do it here. And what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. So anything we can do to be helpful, please let me know. And as I said, if you have other questions, or if you have other ideas, don't sit on them. Let us know. Let us know. And I can just tell you, from growing up, I'd sit in class and I'd sit in seminars, and I was always wanting to ask a question, but I thought it was going to be a stupid question. And I was always glad when somebody else asked it. So I said, God, thank God that they said that. I really wanted to know. So, Russ, and I don't know, I guess we could, if there's anything anybody wants to ask me about right now that I can just, listen, if I don't have the answer for you, Marcy's here and I'll get back to you. So what I try to do is revert everything back to my business life, because I really think this is a business model that I'm in right now, the same as I was before. So if there's something that's on your mind that I could address, I'd love to do it. Yes, ma'am.
Let me start here. Congressman, we get some information for you about
Okay.
Northwestern and a little about the cooperatives. And have here today.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
We appreciate your stance on the IRS and what you're doing there. And one of the things that we're doing at a cooperative level, we're kind of battling another area of bureaucracy, and that's with the Department of Energy. For example, let me just lay this groundwork that's in there. Northwestern, for example, small little cooperative up there with about 20,000 members. We pay about $16 million a year for our wholesale power that we distribute to our members. Well, we avoid about another $1 million because of our load management system, where we shut off water heaters and electric heated homes during our peaks. So we can reduce our demand, that makes our efficiency better. Well, Department of Energy, in all their wisdom, decided that they're going to basically, in April of 2015, outlaw large hot water tanks above, what's the number?
55.
55 gallon and above. And they want everybody to migrate towards heat pump water heaters or convert to gas or do something else. And they're not singling out gas or anything else, they're just singling out large hot water tanks. And for us, we basically have a load management system where our folks sign up, we guarantee their tanks, and we like putting in an 80-gallon tank because we can control it for 6 hours out there, as opposed to those small ones. And they're hell-bent on reducing it. Linda on my staff has been down to Washington, did some testimony down there. RECA is working on it. I know they have a number of folks in Congress that have signed on letters asking them to reconsider this sort of thing. But that's a typical type thing. There's some fairly young people there advising some of the other members in DOE that are saying, you know, better than you. And we're saying, well, not everybody can fit in a heat pump water heater. Not all of them are. And they're not as efficient up north as they are down in the southern part of the United States. And we buy state-of-the-art hot water tanks. I know REA, you guys do too, and distribute to members that are great, low insulated, they're top of the line type units. And then by reducing the demand, we make our whole system more efficient to help our power costs. Anything you can do to help us out on that, we really appreciate it.
Marcy, I can get one. I have a lot of friends sitting on the energy conference.
But we need all the help we can get.
We've got good Pennsylvania representation there. We've got Mr. Pitts, that's in the eastern part of the state. We've got Tim Murphy down in Pittsburgh. So let me, if you would make a note of that, Marcy, I'll get with Timmy, Mr. Pitts, and see what's going on there. There's something there right now. Also, there's some letters that are already out.
Yeah, there are.
Okay.
RECA is coordinating that through our national group. Well, that's pretty important to us. That's one of our livelihood things that we're doing, that is helping all of our members save money, a lot of money, $1 million a year, really, for us, avoiding costs on power. That's a pretty good deal. So
Okay,
appreciate it.
let me see what I can do with that,
Thank you.
that committee.
And
You know,
you
once it
did
gets
help.
into the bureaucracy, that's the hard part. You can talk to legislators, but you can't talk to bureaucrats.
I know Linda sat across the table in the testimony, and they said, we don't care what you say after 2015. It's going to be illegal to manufacture those things, whether you like it or not, period. And they're kind of drawing it out, and they say, no, wait a minute, you haven't even heard of it. For example, our farmers that clean out their milking systems and that have over 100-gallon tanks, a couple of them team together. They have to meet all the
Sure.
requirements. They're going to be outlawed. They're going to have to go to propane or something like that, which is going to be double their costs, as opposed to what we can do. So those kind of things don't make sense. And heat pump water heaters, not all of them work very well. So anyway, it's a long involved type subject, but it's one of those arbitrary rules that some radio kid in DOE thought that's the thing to do. Almost like the IRS thing, sort of, you know, they just, you know.
I
they
know
have the
that.
power to do it.
I can tell you this, and just to give you an idea, when I first got elected, I was meeting with some of these people, and the Department of Labor came in, and I was going over a whole list of things, and the guy sat back, and he started to laugh. I said, you think this is funny? He goes, it's very funny. He goes, you know, in another year, you got to start running for re-election. All I have to do is just get through your term here. So he said, I don't want to be disrespectful, Congressman, but there's not a heck of a lot you can do about it. We're here permanently. You're here in a cycle. So, and I thought, well, and I said, this is this arrogance, though, of a government that has grown way too big, way too intrusive, power over us, and we have to be able to back that off. So I'll get with Fred Upton, who's the chairman of that, and I'll get with Timmy and Mr. Pitts and see what we can do, but I'll find out about that. I'll tell you what, listen, I wish I had the power to change some of these things, or collectively we get it done. These are hard lifts, because once it gets into the agencies, and that's really a difficult thing. And the other thing is I tell people, you know, doggone it, that all these agencies we are talking about all fall under the executive branch. And I don't think we have a chief executive officer that really understands that. And he looks at these different assets that he has in different agencies he's in, using it in a different way than it should be used. Now, he's not the first guy to do that, by the way. But this thing has grown way too big. The organization has outgrown its usefulness, I think. It's too big to wield.
There's among cops from all over the country, you
Yep.
know, and what we're willing to do is work with us a little bit. You know, we're the guys with all the experience and knowledge in the field, and they won't even listen to us.
You know, I wish it was only with you. I mean, it's with everything these people touch. And they do. They have an attitude that poor people out there just don't get it. We have to wet nurse you through this so you understand what it is that we're trying to drive to. So, no, that makes absolutely no sense to us in the private sector. But I'm sure when they sit around wherever they go to have coffee and stuff, they sit back and say, I can't believe these people are so stupid. They don't get it. They
Also tie into like General Electric, who's in here, does a pretty heavy duty lobby job on them, and they listen to them as if they're the gospel. They're not real.
But we'll look into this, okay? I can promise you, Morris, we'll look into it, but I don't want to tell you something up front, say, oh, yeah, don't worry about it, I'm going to take care of that.
As long as you're aware,
No,
that's
I'm
all.
going to find out what I can find out. I'll get the first year. Again, Bill and I will talk. And what I try to do is build relationships with people. When you first get there, I mean, you really are. You're the lowest person on the totem pole, and you've got to work your way up. And what I try to do is get with other people, build relationships, so that whenever I call them, they say, okay, you know what, he knows what he's talking about. Let's sit and listen to him. So that's what you got to do. Same as what you all do right now. You're all sharing ideas. I mean, you know, it's the relationship really makes sense. So that's how you move forward. So I will look into that, Mike. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say, I saw you on a live feed through the Wall Street Journal, I think, when the IRS was getting questions. I don't know, I'm a CPA and I'm a CFO at Northwestern. I just appreciated your attitude of standing up, and I mean, I could almost read your mind that, you know, I'm just so tired of this arrogance, and I had heard so many of these responses, you know, I'm not sure, I can't remember, I think so. And the fact that you didn't even ask a question impressed me, because to me, you just took on a challenge, and I mean, I hope that trend continues, because I agree with you. I think there's so much arrogance in these agencies that you don't even think the public has any rights anymore.
Well, the information I had ahead of time, and looking at his position, this guy that's in charge of it, just came in, but he was. If you don't know what's going on in these different regions, and saying that was some outpost in Cincinnati, a couple of low-level folks that didn't know what was going on, come on. And I know from talking to different people, these people communicate all day long. Listen, in the age we're in, the age of communication, They don't know what's going on in Cincinnati. I would tell you they know what's going on. Listen, they know what kind of cereal we eat, whether we put skim milk on or 2% or whole milk. And they don't know what's going on out in the field. They don't know what these folks are doing. That was a strategy from the highest level down. It was laid in there very, very cleverly. Now, it's hard to get an answer out of these folks. I've been watching the Attorney General and everybody, what's bothering me is when people start to say, well, you know, you have to understand that when he was answering that, he was answering, I said, hey, listen, save that for somebody else. He was asked a question. What did you know? When did you know? And were you involved in it? Don't give me this thing where you have to understand the timing of it and how it would go through that procedure. I said, no, the American people deserve to have a straight talk answer. They don't need this beating around the bush and coming out with all these different things to say you misunderstood what he said. No, I understood what he said, and I understand what he's doing. And I think it's high time for Americans to stop sitting back and saying, well, I'm just not sure. If you're not sure what's going on right now, then you need to read a little bit more or watch a little closer. It's very evident to me what's going on. And I think the only thing we can do is we can stop them in their tracks right now. If you don't do it, you're emboldening them to go forward with their agenda. And I think it's time to stop it right now. Cut it off where it has gone way too far. It's way too intrusive. And the arrogance of these folks, the dismissiveness of these folks is totally unacceptable. They work for the American people. That's not an independent agency. So I get wound up about this stuff. I'm tired of their beating around the bush. I'm tired of them trying to say, well, you just don't know enough about it. I know enough about it. I'm 65 years old. I've been to the rodeo a couple of times, and I know, you know, when it waddles like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. This one doesn't pass the smell test, and they need to be held accountable.
Well, you know, I keep thinking, and I think a lot of people do that see the government, you know, thinking, I'm the CFO of Northwestern. Like, if my boss comes to me and wants to talk about something important in finance, you know, if my answers were, I'm not sure, I have no idea, and I didn't even act like I cared as to looking into it, and they just kept answering, you know, I'm not sure, I don't know. I mean, how long would I last in the real world? These guys down there, they just operate that way.
Well, you know, the other thing is, I got to tell you, that Mr. Miller that we talked to, now, keep in mind, he does not get held accountable for anything. The only thing he was really worried about is getting to go before Congress. Doesn't lose his pension, doesn't lose any pay. He'll get redeployed to another department. Listen, they may be in the Department of Energy today, the Department of Interior tomorrow, they may be in the Department of Labor. I mean, listen, they go back and forth. They're utility players. And I don't want to be critical of every government employee, but the model allows it to happen. It doesn't work in the private sector because we can't afford it. We can't afford incompetence. You go out of business. This one doesn't go out of business. I said, the 16 trillion is just the tip of the iceberg. You work much farther in depth than that. But to continue on that path and say there's nothing you can do about it, I just think you don't walk away from that type of responsibility. My dad was a World War II guy, and I'm sure that we have some folks in this room that have been through very difficult times. Listen, you can walk away from it, but that's not the answer. You've got to fight it. Whatever's in front of you that day, you've got to meet that challenge. You've got to get it together. And if you don't, shame on you. If you can't do it, hand it off to somebody else that's willing to go ahead and step up and take the reins for a while. So I share you, Mike. I got to tell you, it is very frustrating not to be there with those folks right now, but the American public has a learning curve problem. They understand, they don't understand, it's your government. You don't have to accept this type of behavior. You don't have to accept this water. Why? Why? Because we said so. No, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Bad performance and bad ideas, you don't reward that. You don't bonus people for doing a bad job. So, no, we have to take control of the government, and you do that on election day. So, I would just ask you to please keep doing what you're doing. You know, stay the course. Don't give up on it, and just understand, as I do, that listen, while it may look like a tough battle right now, it's our turn, and we got to fix it. And I'm not going to hand this on to my kids and my grandchildren on that. Hell, that's not American. So, thanks, Mike. Thanks for what you're doing. Anything we help with the power end of it. I mean, I know we've got a lot of things going on. I worry about the grid because I think we've really got a problem with our grid. We need to do investment for that. But on the energy side of it, there's so many assets that we have. I mean, wouldn't you like to see a really aggressive energy strategy right now, using everything that we have on the table? My goodness. And some of you had the ability to travel. I've traveled to other places, but there's no place like home. I mean, there's no other place in the world that I could think of right now that if I were to go home and say to my wife, say, Vic, you know what? This isn't good for us and it's not good for our kids. We're going to move to where? Nowhere. And for us, and for our generation right now, listen, this is our challenge. Other generations have had challenges too. They met the challenge. They didn't whimper, they didn't whine, they understood, yeah, this can happen. Our form of government, by the way, allows what's happening right now to happen, does it not? You know, we go through an election process and people have the ability, if they're not happy with their current leadership, to change it. Well, apparently there weren't enough people unhappy on November 6th that they said, okay, fine, we'll take another 4 years. But I'm just saying that the way we're structured, we can still make changes and we can still go to bat every day and protect our interests and do what's in the best interest of the people we represent. So I would just ask you all, I mean, just stick with us, and if you have something that you want to get back to us, please let us know. Let us know. Let us know. I know we can talk about it at the coffee shop and walk out of there and think, well, we at least got it off our chest, but we didn't get it off our plate. We've got to fix these things, folks. And I think the way to do it is just to stay the course, understand where it is we need to get, look at the assets that we have, look at the opportunities we have, and look at the bright side of it. I just think it's unlimited opportunity for us right now in the world. There's just nobody that can compete with us, not with the assets that we have. Now we just have to get a really strong leadership model. Yes, Mike?
Let me just bring up another point, is that I serve on a research committee that's done a lot of research in our business and our industry on a whole variety of subjects, and one of the things is energy, obviously, and we're doing a lot of research to try to allow carbon to continue. For example, there's the injection systems in coal-fired plants that are being developed, maybe 10 years away, that are going to be able to develop so you can burn coal cleanly. And same thing with oil. And a concern when you add too many alternative energy sources in, and we have to start cycling our baseload plants, they're not very efficient by doing that. That's going to be a real problem. I really applaud your point about having a national energy strategy. We need it big time. But also from our industry as a whole, we're doing everything we can to try to work on having a plethora of different sources, making sure that we don't just pick on carbon because people want to pick on it today. I mean, holy smokes, we've got hundreds of years of coal underneath our ground there, for crying out loud. Oil, the shale, and the gas and stuff we're having in Pennsylvania, as you know. We really need all those sources of generation. We need all of those to make it happen. And our cooperatives here, we're some of the forefront folks in leading technology. Most of us now all have automatic meter reading systems. We have load management systems. We're putting in some of this latest state-of-the-art type things for communicating with our members and having those abilities to do things, trying to protect against the bad guys on cybersecurity. But on the energy side, we really need a national energy strategy. We need a policy, big time. We can't live with what we got, which is chaos.
Yeah, and I think the fortunate thing for me is being in this position. I've had an opportunity now. I went down to consult down at the Bailey mine and actually went to, have any of you ever been to these underground mines? I'm not trying to be cute. If you've never been there, I mean, this is a fascinating thing. It was 700 feet under the surface, but you'd never know that you were 700 feet under. I had an outfit on, I don't know, I don't look very good, I'm not much of a coal miner, but whenever you see that product, I was trying to understand because I keep hearing about this coal, you know, what a problem coal is, what a problem coal is. I grew up with coal. I have a lot of friends in the coal business. We burned coal at my grandmother's house, and we'd have to get out and stoke it and shake it down and take the ash out and do everything else. But whenever I went down to that Bailey mine, and they do, that's that Pittsburgh vein, where they shave it, and the miner comes out, shaves it, and there's a fine mist of water spray, and then there's a vacuum that sucks everything out. So I'm there just like we're talking right now. And the face of it is about from here to there, about that size. I was watching this machine work, and then the technology that we have now is incredible. And my question to the guy that was showing me around, and he said, I've been doing this for 40 years. He said, when I first started, I did this on my knees, and I laid on my back with a pick to get the coal out. He said, I can come down here dressed like this, watch this happen. I've told my wife, she said, wants me to retire. I said, why? This is the easiest my job's ever been. I just stand and watch. What they call a miner is it goes through with these cogs, it shaves it, sprays the mist over it, sucks all that out. Then it goes through all the washing process. Then it gets pulverized and put it. So you look at it and say, so what's the problem with this product? If you were to ask most people, they have a different concept of what coal is. And again, I said the gap between what people think they know and they know. If they really would see that process, and this is not a problem. And we talk about fracking, and listen, they do it right behind the dealership. And I watched it, and I've talked to people that are very adamant about, you understand what it's doing to our water. And I said, I understand what you're saying, but do you understand how deep this is? They'll say, oh yeah, I mean, they're doing it, they're digging into these aquifers. I said, you know, this is 5,000 to 7,000 feet deep. And then you start to get that look, and it's like, well, wait a minute, let me show you what I found. And this is, I said, listen, I don't want to be disrespectful to you, but there's two sides to every story. I've heard what you have to say. I've seen it myself. What you're describing is not what I've seen. I know that there's a great deal of technology that's out there today. There's a great way to protect the environment. And that creates jobs also. So let's get away from that and look at the opportunity that exists right now with energy. My gosh, what we have. I mean, we don't need to be dependent on anybody in the world for our energy. And then with the nuclear development, I understand that there have been some nuclear accidents. And again, not to be dismissive. I travel the turnpike all the time. My dad first traveled the turnpike back in '36 when it first opened. All right? And I'm sure there's been some accidents on the turnpike, but we sure as hell didn't shut down the turnpike because of that. And I go up and down 79, and I go across 90. We have all these great ways of traveling. And can there be an accident? Can there be something goes wrong? Yes, there can. But we have great ways to handle this stuff. And I just think that sometimes we cry wolf all the time, but oh no, you don't understand what's going to happen. You don't understand what's going to happen. I said, here's what I understand. If we don't develop these assets, we're going to become a third world country, okay? I understand that. Now, you all know from living up here, I mean, this Marcellus opportunity, the ability of people now to look to the future and plan of how would you turn the farm over to the next generation? What would you do? How would you plan your future? How would you do it? This is giving these folks an altogether different window of opportunity that they didn't have before. Let's look at it for the best side of it, and let's protect the environment, do it responsibly. It's a win-win. We create revenue. We have a government that burns through revenue like crazy. I mean, you all know what it is. You know, we collect about $2.4 trillion a year in taxes. We spend $3.7 trillion a year. Now, when I talk to people about that, they kind of look at me and say, here's what it means. A family that has $24,000 a year to spend spends $37,000 a year. And they just don't do it 1 year. They do it year after year after year. And they keep saying, don't worry about it. We can cover it sometime in the future. I mean, people say you can't do that. Absolutely. It's just the number of zeros behind the numbers. If you start to reduce it down to where it's understandable, then people say, we better do something today. Not next month, not next year, not next decade, today. Because we can handle it. We can take care of it. So, yeah, there's just so much opportunity right now. You see it. Russ, I got to tell you, I know what you're buying power from everybody. You're going to do it. The grid's got to be there. The transmission's got to be there. We've got to do things to protect that. And we've got to look to the future where the opportunity is so that we can absolutely continue to support all these wonderful programs we have. That's what it's going to take. You're in your home, for crying out loud.
Mike, maybe you can take another 2 minutes to brag a little bit about our portfolio, our energy portfolio. What do we have?
Yeah, we're very fortunate that we've got about 60% of our power is nuclear. And zero carbon footprint as far as that goes.
Yeah.
And another 14% approximately is 8 or 9% that's hydro. And so consequently we have some pretty clean stuff, some from the Niagara Power, and we have our own run-of-the-river 20 megawatt plant out of Ray's County. So we're very fortunate in that, but we still buy about a third of our power, 30% or so, 32 from the open market, which is a plethora of different sources out there, from coal, nuclear, oil, all kinds of stuff. It's going on gas. And I have a hard time understanding how we're shutting down coal plants all the time, almost every month now, a coal plant is being shut down somewhere. So we're going to take that coal, still going to bring it out of the ground because the miners got to have their jobs. They're going to ship it over to China. They're going to burn it over there at those plants that have no pollution control at all. And about a month later, we're going to all breathe the same air, or less. That doesn't make sense. But also on the transmission grid, nobody wants to build new transmission lines anymore. Nobody wants it in their backyard and all that good stuff. And there's only so much you can do with the existing grid. And where we're at in northwestern Pennsylvania, we're kind of transmission bound. We have a little bit of a problem getting the power out in our part of the world on things. And so there's always a problem getting the things we need and what we have out here for golden support, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we need that overall energy policy to take care of the generation, the transmission grid, and then our distribution system. We can do a good job on that. That's what our specialty is. But it's that generation and transmission to get it where we need to take care of our members. That's what really needs to be protected.
And with owning 70% of the power that our consumers need, buying other 30% on the market, we have the lowest generation rates in the
All
state.
Pennsylvania, yeah.
And as I said to you before, we only have 7 customers per mile, where an IOU has about 40 per mile. We can do it maybe at, our cost distribution wise average maybe 10% higher, not 50% higher, but only 10% higher, doing it with 1/5 the number of people that an IOU does.
It's pretty telling, really, when we have electric competition in the state. And our members have the ability to go out and shop for generation too, but we don't have one electric generation supplier that has signed a contract with any of our distribution cooperatives, any one of the 13 of us in Pennsylvania, because they can't beat our price. Our price through Allegheny is a rock bottom lowest, and they can't make any money by getting below that. So we're managing it where we think is the right thing, our co-op model, and we're delivering to our members at the best prices we possibly can. But it's the future we always got to protect, and that's really where you're at too. Because what we do today is going to make something 10, 20, 30 years down the road.
All good points, but we do. Right now, you hit the nail on the head, but it's a strategy that has to use all the above and to drive towards an answer for America's energy needs. It's all there. The thing is puzzling is, so what are we waiting for? What's the holdup? And I would just ask, and I would encourage all of you to stay on board with it, and when you want to be heard as an entire group. Listen, you know what, when you all stand together, it's much easier than one standing by himself. So stay together on these things, and things that you are looking to have done, the things that you think need to be addressed, address them as a group and stay together. I know you all work so well together. It's just it's a dynamic organization, and so I appreciate the opportunity to serve you. But let us know, okay? I know we have great challenges, but it's so fixable here, and especially in the times that we live in. My goodness, there's just nothing but upside to all this, and technology has made it possible to use it. Look, when I first started selling cars, listen, the cars we sold in the 60s are a little bit different than the cars we sell today. And back then, a 4-cylinder car was really a car that you probably didn't want to drive too often. But boy, these things are little rockets right now. It's all because of engineering and technology, and we're getting more miles per gallon, we're getting more efficient, and we still have a long way to go, because we know we don't have a lot of efficiency from the drive, from where the power is produced through the drive line to the wheels. There's still a great gap there that we can continue to close and get more miles per gallon, more out of every energy unit. We're doing it everywhere, so yeah, we keep moving forward, but we just, as long as we stay together, we win. If we get fractured and we walk away from it, or we get too frustrated and we say, you know what, I can't cope with this anymore, the heck with it. They win. No, it's not that they win, it's that we lose. And we just can't. We can't. Losing is not an option right now. Again, I don't want to pit any of us against anybody else in the government or anything else, but the biggest divide that I see right now is the faith and trust the American people have in the form of government we have. When you get to that level, I don't care if it's in a personal relationship, in a business relationship, if you don't trust that person or that entity or that organization, then you can't go forward. We lose. We all lose. So we've got to restore that. Some of the things we're going through right now are an effort to restore the faith and trust that the American people need to have in this current model of government we have. It's just so essential. We'll keep working that way. But thanks for what you're doing. And any way we can be of service.
Something that you may or may not be aware of, but talk about that trust. I served on a committee last year that took a look at the overall future of where we need to go and whatnot. And there's a huge problem, like you said, no doubt about trust in institutions. One of the things that's really unique, though, is that our electric cooperatives sitting around these tables here today have some of the highest trust and loyalty of any institution in the country today. I mean, we rank up there in those satisfaction and loyalty surveys, indexes with the best companies in the world. It's just amazing that our members are hanging in there, and you've been to our annual meetings, stuff like that, and you know what they're all about, and we have a lot of great and wonderful people. They believe in us, and we do a lot of great things, and we're good at what we do. And we're very fortunate that because of doing the kind of things we do with the ethics we have and our hard work and whatnot, we have some of the best loyalty and trust indexes of any companies there are out there.
Very positive. Yeah, well, your meetings are good. It's good. I wish we had that much participation on the days that we vote. Well, I mean, listen, the number that people talk about is the turnout. The number that bothers me more is that eligible voters who aren't even registered. Turnout's one thing, but people who never even register, and I go through this all the time. People, when I ask them, I said, well, listen, how'd you vote? You know, you're voting, right? No, I don't vote anymore. I said, why not? I said, because my vote doesn't count. I said, that's a very true statement. If you don't vote, your vote doesn't count. But, you know, you have an obligation, not to me, but to all those that came before us, to get out there. You have to be totally committed to this form of government we have. You just can't be involved from time to time. You've got to be totally committed to it. And I look at it a lot different now as a 65-year-old than I did as a 25-year-old. And you just do. Things change, and your priorities change. You start to look at the things that are really solid in your life and are important in your life. I know what they are, but I do know that it takes total participation and devotion to keeping it alive, and it's going to fix it. So we can do that as a group. We have to do it. We have to. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And these are some of the reasons why we gotta keep the congressman in Congress. He protects our interest all the time. That's why we endorsed him last time around. That's why we're gonna endorse him again. And when it comes to spreading the word, this congressman protects our interest here in Pennsylvania, but in Washington. We know we can do well ourselves. We just don't need government intrusions. He's one of those people that keep government out of our pockets. Great congressman, great staff, and we enjoy